To record this today, so hopefully folks that don't join can still experience the goodness, which is our Friday hangouts on Discord. So give me 1 minute as I'm setting that up, and it's good because I think we still have people joining in right now. So here we go. John,
And
can
we are
you?
so cutting edge that
You got it.
I can't our Friday hangout on Discord is actually a Thursday hangout on Discord. We're
Yeah,
like
we had to
ahead of the
move it.
game already.
We had to move it this week. Yeah. Okay, we're recording. The magic is happening. John, is it just me and you today? Or is it just a duo? Dynamic duo?
I think it is.
Cool.
Yeah, I've invited folks for future sessions. Yeah, I don't know if any other Adobe folk will show up.
If they do, it'll
But
be
yeah, I've
like a
got some
sitcom
some
door, and
things
we
to
can like play
show.
a riff bass, and then we'll get into the mix. But for now, it sounds good.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
feel
So
free to, if
I've
you want
got
to, give folks an idea of what we're going to be chatting about today, and also we should probably introduce ourselves. Huh? That maybe be a good way to start. So I'll let you lead off, and then I'll jump in.
sure. Hey everybody, I'm John. I'm a product manager at Adobe. Um, I was here for a long time, back in the day, working on Photoshop. And then I came back about 2 years ago to work on what we were calling AI first creativity, not really knowing what that meant, still figuring out what it means, obviously, with your help. And so, yeah, super excited to now be driving efforts on the Firefly website and then working with a lot of product teams like Photoshop, Express, Illustrator, really kind of down the line on how they can integrate the tech into their experiences. And obviously, that's where you all come in because what they do really needs to reflect what you need it to do. So yeah, please hit us up with comments and questions anytime, during this session and beyond.
Yeah, plus one to that. I think folks would probably be surprised, pleasantly surprised to know how often Adobe people are monitoring and watching the Discord chat, both because it's fun and also because it's really valuable. So, um, yeah,
It is. I see Carrie, our teammate Carrie, listed, or somebody who's just a big fan and took her name and profile picture, but it's probably her. Anyway,
you
not to
never
call
know.
anybody out, but yes, there's like Adobe folk materializing quietly in the background.
Yes.
And yeah, actually, I can show you just as like I don't know if it'll be interesting, hopefully, but like a little bit of inside baseball, just like how we track some of the feedback we get here and what we can then do with it, because it is incredibly helpful,
I
by the way.
think that
It's
would be
they
really
always
cool.
say, yeah, like I know Gus and others have been um, encouraging people to go to the community forum and to upvote the various features that are requested there. But I'll show you actual proof. Those upvotes are going somewhere, and then hopefully you'll like what we're planning, even if it's like really a work in progress, as you'll see. But I can give you a little taste of what's coming down.
Cool. I'm really excited. I want to do two quick PSAs. Also, hi everyone. I'm Gus. I work on the community team. Maybe you've hung out with me as we've played with Firefly, and we host these. We host these once a week with John, sometimes Hep, sometimes some other folks from the Firefly team. And so we're really excited to have you here today. If you have questions, John's the guy to ask them of. We may not have the perfect answer, but we'll try our best. So you're welcome to use the chat. There is a live chat that's part of the stage event. So if you look in the top right corner of your stage screen, there is a little dialog box. It's really tiny, and it might have a number hovering in the bottom right corner of it. If you click on that, you'll then see the chat that we're all looking at. So that's how you get there. We're here. We're going to be hanging out for the next 25 or so minutes, and John has some cool things to show off today. So I'll turn it over to you from there, John.
Okay, yeah, and please, folks, interject. It's hard to look in multiple directions, but maybe Gus, if you
Yeah.
see interesting, comments, questions, please jump in. Um, okay, let me just, as always, I've got to figure out how to share my screen. Um, and
First question, John. Somebody's
go
curious if there's going to
live.
be an API access for Firefly.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was chatting this morning with some enterprise customers, and they were asking just the same thing. So I think there's a chain of things we have to do before getting there. As you've probably heard, we say on the Firefly site that this output isn't for commercial use, and you get the little watermark accordingly. And really, that's because we're working through these really foundational questions about, how do we acknowledge and compensate creators, folks who've contributed their work to Adobe stock. So I think we need to get through some of those questions, and then we can think about, okay, now that the model's in a good state and safe and commercially viable, how do we actually integrate it into different surfaces? As you'd expect, we're of course putting it into tools like Photoshop and Express. But I'd love to see a world where, from whatever surface makes sense, you can invoke these tools. I would say, yeah, please share details here, or feature requests. Really getting specific about exactly what you want to do helps us make the case that that's something we should prioritize. Okay, so are folks seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. And hopefully it's not too small. I'm trying to make the content a little bit bigger just because I know it gets a little shrunk down. But what I thought I'd do is just kind of give you an update on the Recolor vector work. That's something I showed last week. Obviously, not everybody here today was there, but it's come along a lot, and the team is really getting into a good state. So we'd love to get it into your hands as soon as we can. But in the meantime, I can kind of show you where we are. So if I choose Recolor vector, and by the way, if you're familiar with the Recolor feature in Illustrator, this is related. It uses some of the same tech to take sort of the distribution of color and tone in an image and then map that into vector art. The difference here is the image is being generated by Firefly. So you can really just think of whatever you'd like, type it in as a prompt, and it'll make it. And to give you kind of a running start, we actually supply a bunch of images in SVG form with some prompts. And so let's try this cat, I'm going to say. I think it's a cat. Let's try the prompt. And, much like when you hit the inspiration stream for images, when I click this, it loads the SVG and it applies purple, blue, and green. That's not the most exciting. What if we said vibrant sunset? And so you're not changing any of the geometry, obviously, of the cat. You're just typing in a new prompt. Behind the scenes, it's generating images of sunsets. And then once those exist, it will apply those tones to this artwork. And so I can mouse over these. So I have a little Pinterest extension, so it kind of tries to override in case you see the little save button. But really, you could just mouse over these guys. And then one of the cool things is, unless it has disappeared, which is why we're not shipping quite yet, you have these affordances for seeing the colors and then actually reshuffling them. So this little bunch of color pips in the upper left are the the colors in the image. And then if I hit this little shuffle button, it's then going to shuffle those in the artwork. And if I get to a state I like, of course, I can hit the down button and it's going to download an SVG. And just to show it really is happening. Oh, that was small. Okay. We got to figure out. There's still a few little bugs. Obviously, that's again why we're not shipping. You got the idea, right? But it is in fact vector, and it scales up smoothly. I'll have to file a bug after the session. But yeah, really pretty straightforward. The other thing we've done is added presets over on the right. So kind of like the settings you can use when you're generating an image or styling text, you can go in and be like, yeah, what if it was the cat at a trippy disco? I've never seen that, so take a look. And it's generating trippy disco images and then making these colors. And you can actually shuffle them here in the 4-up view as well if you want to try a few different treatments. So within each one, you get these n different colors, and then reshuffling just changes which objects are having which colors applied to them. Yeah, again,
cool.
it's pretty straightforward. Cool. Oh, and then the last thing I'm somehow forgetting, let me just drag my own SVG in. But yeah, go ahead. Yes.
No, I'm just, this still blows my mind. I know we've been you've been working in depth on it for a while, and I've been aware of a lot of these things for a minute, but I don't know. Maybe it says my age, but every time I see these new tools, even when they're in work in progress, I can't even believe that it's a possibility. So it's really fun to see this
Cool.
come to life.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. I think the rate at which we metabolize magic has gone sky high, right? And so it's like, oh, that's like so 10 a.m. It's like 3 p.m. on board already. Like which price that into the world. But it is good to remember to step back and be like, oh yeah, this is FM technology. The M is magic, and you can figure out the F, which my friend learned in Navy radio school. But yeah, that's the Recolor module. you'll see, and I'm not quite ready to show it, unfortunately, but like just to kind of tease for the future, as we talked about or sort of briefly depict in the video down below, we're working on in painting and out painting, so being able to like modify a specific region or be able to change the aspect ratio of a photo. Lots of good stuff coming there. A little less cooked, but again, stay tuned. Hopefully, we'll have something in pretty short order. And then I mentioned that we are reading all of the feature requests folks are posting and taking those into account. My teammate Tracy isn't here today, but she's doing like an incredible job going through these super active channels, going through the forum. Gus and Aaron and other folks on the team are doing likewise, and then trying to roll it up in a way where our leadership could see, oh yeah, actually across surfaces, these are the things people care most about. And so I've never done this before, and I'm going a little bit off script, but I just want to show you, some of the things people are bringing up. And this is not something you couldn't see yourself, because if you go on the community forum, you can see like the things people have filed and voted. But we're just trying to look across, community forum, Discord, Slack internally. There's tens of thousands of people who work at Adobe, which still blows my mind. And they also are very actively using the product and giving their feedback. So we're just trying to kind of triangulate across those. And then ultimately we make them into a record in Jira, which is our, bug/feature tracking system. And we can kind of drag those around and say, okay, this is the most important thing. Let's hand that off to the designers. They can then visualize some solutions. We run those by Eng, and they say like, well, you're crazy, or you missed this, or what about that? And then we just kind of iterate that. And then it just moves through the process of getting it stood up in code, ultimately, getting it in front of you, and then shipping it. So some of the top things that you'd imagine, again, are the ones that I think you'll have seen. So people are asking for the ability to save their history in some form. And I give you a little kind of peek of what we're thinking about there. Being able to upload a reference image, and we can talk about, I think, how that might work. And I won't go through all of these because that's probably kind of tedious. But just to acknowledge, like, we really are powered by you when it comes to ideas and requests, right? And it's this hopefully very virtuous loop where, we're taking in the feedback, we're sort of triaging it. We take, similar ideas and kind of dedupe them and try to put them all into a similar bucket. And then based on that, we can make the case, yep, this is where we got to go first.
It's
And
really
so regarding
interesting, John.
history,
Like,
oh yeah,
as I'm
please.
looking at this, the numbers that we're seeing, like the number of like essentially votes per category, isn't exceptionally high, and so it speaks to like the impact that everybody, like, we have 240 people on the call right now, for example. Like, if you have
Wow.
an opinion on how Firefly should or shouldn't work, or what you're concerned about, or features you'd love to see, like, we're tracking them to a pretty granular level. So you should definitely share it with us, because we'll see it, and it'll
Yeah,
probably be on the sheet that John just showed you. So just want to really emphasize that.
yeah, yeah. That's a really good point. Your vote does count, and just to show it, I'm sure we can drop the link in the chat, or I'm sure pinned, in various places on Discord. But there's a little trade-off. I mean, Discord makes it's great because it's very immediate, but then things kind of blow past, and they can get lost. And so what's nice with the community forum is we can make posts that then stick around, so we can pin things. And if there's something you like this, per archive, people have upvoted a lot, right? Which is just, flavor of what we're tracking is like history. And again, upload a reference image is another good one. But relative to just the, tens of thousands of folks, on Discord, you can tell, like, obviously only a smallish percentage go and register a vote. But when you go and do that, it does have a sort of outsized impact.
Yeah.
So yeah, with that, I just wanted to jump over. And again, this is, you'll get a quick sense of like how sort of work in progress it is. I just kind of think it's sometimes fun to see how the sausage is made. Sometimes it's super not fun to see how it's made. And you guys can like stay away from that. But yeah, just to give you a sense of like how things evolve. So let me actually just pop a new tab and go to back to the site, because I just want to compare a couple things side by side.
Sure.
And so obviously, when you come to the site, you can bring up the gallery. And so, I think the first thing people want when it comes to history is, all right, I did something cool. I think it was like yesterday. I don't know, let me just go back and browse all the, the top 20, 50, whatever it was, most recent things I did, right? And they disappear after a while. It's kind of like an undo stack. But you can always go back theoretically and be like, yeah, actually that was, oh, it was a steampunk golden doodle. Like, how did I get there, right? And then as we'll talk about, some of the neat things you see in the community would be great if they could kind of go more viral more quickly. So for example, our colleague Lee Brimolo, um, totally not his day job, but he's just like been making these adorable creatures. I forget if I've shown these before. Um,
I don't think so.
and
But
he's
we should
he's
mention that we're trying to get
okay.
him on one of these hangouts, right? Maybe everyone can meet him at
Yeah,
some point.
totally, totally. Me being the master planner that I am, I give him 40 minutes heads up, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I'm at the vet," but he would love to be here. Maybe next week we can have him come in. So what's cool is when you discover these like little corners of what they call the latent space, right? The sort of like the mind palace of what is Firefly. Um, Being able to like take that and then go, oh, cool, like I want to share that with people, and then they want to riff on it. How do we make that easier and faster? And I think it's closely related to being able to save your stuff. In fact, Lee shared this out, and I think it was here. It might have been a different one he did, but it was like, such and such as a plush toy. And then he went in and just like, typed in different animals. I've got a little golden doodle who's sleeping dutifully next to me. And it's like, we'll just swap out, Champ and put in golden doodle, and it makes, adorable golden doodles. So we would love a world where, you could share those. And then, if you make something really cool, you can just click on it. So essentially, we've got something like that today in the inspiration feed that lives inside the app.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, that's how statistically the vast majority of image creations get started. You go in here and you're like, oh, I didn't even know I wanted that, but that's pretty cool. Like, let me go make this lighthouse, right? And you hit try prompt. Well, in the same way, this is all just like a very, sort of static, hand curated set of things to get the community going. Well, now that we have a community, right, it would be great if people could more readily share those things, and things could then, trend and fork and do all kinds of cool social stuff. So back to the actual designs, and they're very, I just want to set expectations. They're not meant to look pretty so much as it's just more conceptually like, how would this go? So we'd have this notion of a collection, which would be something we could add in the nav bar, right? So today you've got up at the top, there's home, gallery, about, FAQ. Well, alongside gallery, you could have effectively your own gallery, right? Which is your private collection. So none of this is shared, obviously, unless you choose to do that, which would be very explicit and obvious. And again, sorry, it's kind of tiny. I think I can make it bigger. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So yeah, just, nothing super groundbreaking. It's not supposed to be. It's just like, hey, let me see the last N things I did. Let's say it's 20, right? And then favorites is very similar, but you'd just be able to go, and whenever you create something cool, you could just like hit a little heart button and be like, oh yeah, cool. I want to, like, I don't want that to age out, right? It's like, just because I have 30 of these things, I don't want to lose the last 20, if you only save whereas like the sort of undo stack, obviously that would get kind of overwhelming if we just kept going and going forever.
Right.
So think of, they're very complementary. I'd probably say, for the recents, actually what you want is like a 4-up view of each of these. So you can see all the 4 variations. And then not only would we save the bitmap, but we'd also save the prompt and the seed and all the other stuff that one needs in order to recreate that. So essentially, yeah, it really is like your own private version of the gallery, right?
Chris
and
McKay
then,
also
as
says
I'm saying,
they'd love to be able to search within that too, potentially, depending on how much content's in
yeah,
there. Yeah.
Totally, yeah, agreed. I mean, I think what'll happen, it'll be this like this evolving thing where it's like, well, once it exists, then it's like, well, I'm going to use it more, and once I use it more, then I want to split it into playlists or catalogs or collections, and it's like, yes, absolutely. Let's we'll do the first thing first, and then if you like it, we'll do the next thing and the next thing. But yeah, that would be a great problem to have, is that people are using it so much they actually want some organization to it.
Yeah, for sure.
So just at a at a sort of like very, very 1.0 simple starting place, just give me a flat list, and then this is just some like treatments on like how it would look for mobile. But sharing, I think, also could be a really natural extension of this, right? So when you see something you really like, you could hit a little, I guess, tattooed guy with a man bun. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't even read the text. Sometimes I just assume it's lorem ipsum, but I notice man bun for whatever reason. So there you go. I actually would like to see what that looks like. But the idea is you could share this to just a quick static link, right? So it wouldn't be dependent on somebody having access to Firefly or being logged in. You could just like tweet out a link, you could share it, you could do whatever you want, and the image wouldn't change. It would just be the image, that you shared. But obviously, the neat thing is if, hey, Lee goes and makes these amazing little creatures, I want him to share those in such a way that I can then click this and like get the pizza guy, right? And then turn the pizza guy into steampunk pizza guy, right? Then maybe I share that and it's like, hey, Lee did pizza guy, John added steampunk, right? You get this kind of like cool chain of evidence,
Yeah,
or
it's kind of like
the
telephone with an
genetic
image.
mutation.
Yeah, yeah.
The what is it?
It's kind of like the game of telephone a little bit. Like, as you like take one phrase and you
Yeah.
pass it along to people, it sort of morphs into their own version of whatever they heard. And I feel like you're kind of doing that with the visuals. Like you have a recipe and then you can riff off of it.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, that's an incredibly apt segue. So the number two request that I was listing, folks might have noticed, was being able to upload a reference image. And so that's a really interesting one to unpack. And this kind of gets at that telephone idea. So I forget if I showed this last week. I'm sure people have seen some of this already publicly, but there's a technology called ControlNet that you can add to these generative networks. It's actually fun. My old team at Google makes models for like face tracking and hand tracking. They're adding control nets. And they let you just have basically more control over things, right? So if you have a pose, like you could then use that pose to guide image synthesis. I was messing around with it. Somebody had a stable diffusion based version on Hugging Face. And I just took some artwork from, stock and fed it in here and gave it some different prompts. And literally with nothing but that image and some text, I'm able to get all of these really interesting variations. The one that freaks me out, frankly, is the fact like it has this little, sketch of a light bulb, and it somehow like knows that's a light bulb, and light bulbs glow, and like they hit wood, and
Yeah.
this is the stuff that kind of creeps me out, but in a good way. So my expectation, what people mean by let me upload an image, is like, okay, I want to, structure what gets generated. And so, just having a simple affordance while you're creating to browse would let you do that. Now, I can't say anything to like ETA. Obviously, there's like a lot of refinement to make sure this is high quality. The other thing you could do is upload an image for purposes of color and tone, right? So you could kind of think these like cool intersections in the recipe, right? It's like, oh, well, Gus brought the meat and I brought the dry rub, right? And now we're going to combine those in a cool way. I mentioned this to my friend Dave. He's the designer for Character Animator. Took this sketch and like turned it into these creatures. I couldn't resist, taking, people remember Strong Bad. This shows my age, but Trogdor the Burninator. And, you put it in there and exactly. we park in the same garage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can in fact upload Trogdor and then you can burninate all the villagers with this sort of thing. So super mind blowing. Like literally by just picking an image as one of the ingredients that you could complement everything with, you could get to stuff like that. And then that's to your point, Gus, about like game of telephone. There's a game called Telestrations, which is super fun. Our kids love it. It's basically like Pictionary meets telephone.
Yeah.
And each person gets a prompt. You sketch it out. You then show just the sketch to the next person. They have to guess what you drew. They do it. Then they pass it to the next person who has to draw what they guessed. And by the end, it gets bizarre, right? And so here you can imagine, well, I upload an image. I give it a prompt. Gus sees it and he's like, hey, that's pretty cool. But what if I put in a different image, right? And then shares that out. And then you can see this kind of like cool evolutionary path to this outcome. So again, I can't promise any of this stuff or say when it would land, but like these are some of the ideas, like based on your feedback, that we are considering.
One of the things I really love about what you shared today, and really the feeling that it makes me feel, and I think a lot of the people watching, is this field for us, like developing this technology, and even though it's very early on, it feels like fun again, kind of like when you're a kid and you learn how to draw for the first time and you got all of these ideas. I think like this type of sharing and interaction unlocks some dormant areas, at least in my brain, where I'm like, oh wait, like the possibilities are literally endless, and I just want to sit here all day and play with it, which is just I just think it's so cool and really wonderful, because we could all be like more creative and have more fun, and this is like a reason to do that.
Yeah, no, exactly. As I'm fond of saying, I mean, I'll be honest, I've been on and off, between Adobe and Google 23 years. This time last year, my wife and I were like, when do we just peace out and open a coffee shop in the mountains? Because I feel like we've like kind of sitting down it all at this point. And like the next day, my grand mentee Joanne, who I then met, grand mentee being like, "Oh, you mentored my mentor, so you're my grand mentor." At which point, I just like I turned into dust. But anyway, they launched Ali, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" Like, thank goodness, I hopefully still have some runway because this feels to me like being a kid when the Mac came out in 1984, and I was just like body checking the other kids out of the way so I could play with this thing, right? And I actually have coworkers who are like, yeah, I got to go record a tutorial on like photo sharpening for inkjets, and like, yeah, it's cool, it's important, but like, can I go and play with Firefly again?
Yeah.
So yeah, we want to put these ingredients into your hands. By the way, I'm showing this cute little dog. I'd be remiss if I didn't say so. This guy Chris Georgianus, he's been around, you know, doing like really cool animation for many years. And Yeah, he's actually going to present on a live stream. I should find the date. We should post that.
Yeah.
But talking about his process, he used Adobe Animate to do this one, and then there's another one where. Sorry, I'm jumping around. You can look, you follow him on. I think Keyframer is his handle on Twitter. But yeah, I did another one like a little like robot pizza, using After Effects that time. Right. So the combinatoric possibilities here are wild. Especially you can imagine tools where you can just like say, hey, I want, I don't know why, anthropomorphic pizza with a man bun. Right. And then
Because why not?
ideally, we could start like, because why not? The world deserves to know. But segment that out, and then you could say, well, sure, I want to edit the layers in Photoshop. I want to, animate them in After Effects. Maybe I want to turn them to vectors. So really, us launching was not, the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning, right? So it was this big mad dash to get to the starting place, and then we want to put more tools in your hands, so you can take it further.
That's Thank you so much, John. I want to do a rapid fire, a super rapid fire, because I know we're quickly approaching time here, but
Sure.
kind of question round. We've had a bunch of questions pop up throughout the course of the show. The first one, and I'm happy to address it, you can chime in if you want, is around just generally access. People are really excited to get access to the beta. They're really excited about the tools that you're sharing, and there's just a lot of questions on when can I use it. And in general, the answer right now
Yeah.
is we're trying to get people in as quick as we can. We've added a lot of folks. There are still a lot of folks waiting. The good news is the tool's getting better literally every day, and it's still very early in beta. And so even though you might have to wait a little bit longer before you get your hands on it, by the time you do get it, and eventually everyone will get to play with these tools, it's going to be even better. So that's my 2 cents on it. You feel free to add in if you would.
Yeah. No. That. Yeah. Those are exactly right. In fact, I'm gonna head into the office right after this because some of the server team are in town, and we're having this big meeting of the minds about architecture and like how to make it scale efficiently and make sure we don't bankrupt the company and get fired. Because the cloud GPUs ain't cheap. But yeah, really, it's literally just like we're launching and learning as we go. And we're adding tens of thousands of people every day, which sounds like a big number until you see the backlog, and then you're like, that's an even bigger number. So yeah, thanks for your patience. Sorry that it's not as quick as we'd want. It's not from any desire on our part. It's literally just like, how fast can the knob get turned?
Yep. We've had a lot of questions around like, is it going to be part of Photoshop? Can I generate objects as separate layers? There was one question around like, how long did it take to go from beta or from pre to where we currently are to beta? And so I know these are all over the board, but maybe first we can handle kind of the integration, the future idea. My general stance is, like we said earlier, please keep giving us feedback on what you want to see. It's really important. So if you see this tech or you're seeing a demo or maybe you get access to the beta and you're like, hey, I'd love to be able to export layers. I'd love for this to be integrated in Photoshop. Let us know because we're tracking all of that in order to
Yeah.
prioritize
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, excellent point. Right. Please don't be shy. Like, let us know all the stuff you care about, upvote it, other people's stuff that you care about. Um, yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn for other teams. I will say at Adobe Max, even back in October, there were some preview videos that they showed, and they were mostly like conceptual mock-ups because obviously the tech wasn't there yet. But showing in Photoshop, being able to do things like extend the canvas, or you can imagine content aware fill, but like with insane superpowers. Adobe Express is another great surface where that team actually did this really early exploration with how do you make text objects that have generative properties? And then, when should you update those? I think that general pattern is really cool, where, you could imagine almost in any surface, having an object and then just attaching parameters which are generative, right? So like today in Photoshop, you make an object and you attach a drop shadow, or you do the same thing in Illustrator. Well, it's like, well, conceptually, there's not a lot that separates a drop shadow from, a set of instructions, particularly if you have these like image conditioned things. Now, again, I'm kind of getting over my skis here because I don't want to overpromise anything, but like as just a set of building blocks, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, there's a lot of work to make sure it actually works well, that it would be performant. You'd have to figure out like how often should it update? Do you actually, if you move something around, do you want it to update every time you do that? Or does that get slow and annoying? Right. So there's a lot of like really interesting UX questions. I think at a starting place, I'd look at, kind of what the teams previewed at Max, which was just those like, very, very immediately self-evidently useful integrations.
Cool. Thank you. I know I appreciate you dancing around delicate topics always, but I think, consensus is, and I kind of like this session has started to become, and even last week has become, let's put John on the hot seat and see how much information we can squeeze out of him. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's all fun and games until people are like, wait, what did you say? And this was recorded. But no, obviously I don't think I'm disclosing anything like that you couldn't see by just looking at like the upvoted list, right? I just wanted to acknowledge we are super engaged listening, even if we don't always reply. And folks are taking those data points, putting them into a list, which we prioritize and then design and build against, right? So as Gus said, the more specific you can be, the more detailed, the better we can understand what you're trying to do, and then help teams like integrate accordingly.
Thanks, John. We have one more pretty basic question, but maybe we can do it very quick. I know we're a little over, but if you're okay navigating back to the Firefly tool, there was a question about the wave icon in the top left corner of the image. I thought maybe we could just, again, show people quickly both the wave icon and also maybe the reference image feature, and kind of maybe show people how those work.
Yes, thank you. That's great. We were adding features just, again, sort of candidly, so quickly as we were like, hey, what day do we ship? And then it's like, there's one more thing we could sneak in. So not everything is like super discoverable right now, which is okay. But to Gus's point, people are starting to notice like, yeah, what is that little like double tilde thing? So that's show similar. So if you like, oh, I really like this lower right guy, give me 3 variants essentially on that. You can do it. So I just click that, and they should all be kind of similar. It's running a little slow. This is our internal build. So again, one of the reasons we don't scale faster is we want to make sure that performance doesn't start to suck for everybody just because we added too many people too fast. So yeah, these are ones that are kind of like, all right, anchor around this image and go from there. So that's pretty straightforward. The one which is like a little weirder in a sense, just because it's like a more unique, previously unseen feature, is, and again, this is probably small on your screen, but it says use as reference image. So you can invoke this from the 3-dot menu. And if I use this as a reference image, then essentially think I'm going to pin down on this guy. And then, so it says Fairy House in the Woods, and you see this little thumbnail preview of the anchor. Well, then if you said, Fairy House, let me say on the beach, let's just see what happens. So now it's going to make 4 new images, but it's taking that first image as one of the inputs. So this is, if you're like, well, doesn't that sound like that control net thing you were talking about? It's like, it is kind of in that vein, right? It is using one bitmap to generate or to affect the production of other bitmaps. What's then kind of cool is if you click on this, it is Easter, so give you Easter eggs, right? It's a little bit subtle, I acknowledge. But you can vary the strength between the original image and the prompt. So if I crank it up more towards the new prompt, so it's basically more on the beach than in the woods, now you've got this. So you started here, you've got something which is like kind of structurally similar, but now we've like changed the context, which I think is super wild. And again, with all this stuff, please try it out. It's early, it's like semi-hidden, we know, but getting some feedback would be great. And then as we kind of beef up the tech stack and make it the UI easier to use, that can be based on what you have found.
Everybody is really excited to see these features. Thanks for running through them one more time with us, John. We actually have a suggestion from
Yeah,
Chris on a feature they'd like to see. And Chris, before I read your comment, I do want to say if it doesn't exist in the features or on the support forum, please make a post for it so that we can track it and other people can upvote it. But Chris says, I really love how quickly you can iterate in Firefly. However, so much gets lost. I know you can press the back arrow, but it would be
yeah.
really cool to have a sort of canvas timeline where you could just scroll back up to a previous state.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. I'm always amazed that it works at all. It's kind of like that old joke about a dog walking on its hind legs. Like it's not good, but like it's cool that it's happening. So the fact that the team has been able to make it work, where you can kind of toggle back and forth with, front back arrows, is pretty cool. But yeah, that's a first step. It's something we want to make more robust. Especially so, hey, you even close your browser tab, you come back next week. You could even get back to those visual states you were in,
Hmm.
and that's kind of this direction around, like I was showing here. This is obviously not in the editor, but having like a visual list of the things you've made. But as you're saying, yeah, it would be even better if you could then, well, not even better, but it would be complementary if you could invoke that visual history from
Yeah.
here. Maybe you could like again branch it off. You could mix in a new image. You could try this stream versus that stream. Like the possibilities are really rich. We'll start with the simplest thing we can, get it to you as soon as we can, and then tell us what you like and where we should go from there.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Okay, I want to do a couple quick plugs before we wrap up today. We have an event starting in 20 minutes. It's a live stream, a weekly Adobe live stream. It's actually over on Behance and YouTube. You can find it in the events tab for the server. So when we wrap up here, if you want to, you can go check that out. Paul's going to be live with Samantha. They're going to be talking Firefly, showing off features. They're going to be creating things and playing in Photoshop and probably doing all sorts of fun stuff. So please go check that out. We have another live stream after that, 1 hour after it. So you can stick around. It's going to be with Andrew Hockrattle, and they're going to be doing like prompt in Firefly, bringing it to Photoshop, some more creation. So more live streams to come. And I'd be remiss if I didn't at least give John a shout out. John, is it okay if I share your Instagram page?
Oh yeah, please.
We'll get you some Instagram people to bug you.
Thank you.
I'll also.
Yeah, no, no, please do. If you like seeing young kids go insane about steam engines, uh, that's what you're going to get.
I'm all
It's
about
like
it.
the old joke. Well, hey, it's like if God lives inside us, like a lot of people say, I hope he likes burritos because that's what he's getting. So if you happen to go to that Instagram, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And there's yours too. I
I
haven't
put
found yours,
mine in
Gus.
there as well because much like yours, if
Yeah.
you go to mine, you will just see me rollerblading, and that's it, and that's what you're gonna get.
Oh, nice. Oh, let me plug one more since we're giving these.
Yeah.
So a lot of folks who've been around Adobe know Russell Brown. He's been here for like 40 years. He's just like the OG creative director. He's one of the names on the Photoshop 1.0 splash screen, which to me is like if you're gonna have a flex, that's
Holy
pretty
grail.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, totally. So his son Davis actually is one of the designers working on this stuff. Davis has an account called Neural Waves. Is Neural Waves or Neural Dreams? Let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah. Please.
But it's basically him experimenting with generative tech. Neural.waves is the
Nice.
is the Insta handle. Anyway, so Russell, for many years has like gone out to Death Valley and he'll have like a fire breather and an acrobat and he'll do like crazy dawn photo shoot on the dunes. And now it's really cool to see his son coming in and being like, yeah, but what if we could augment that, generatively? And so I'm hoping, by the time Adobe Max rolls around, Russell's going to give another of his little workshops, and I think
Yeah.
Chris might even be involved.
Cool.
George's, but yeah, again, like that whole family. Like I went to their driveway once, and I like just tried to drop off a camera, and it was like 20 minutes later, like Russell's wife had like totally picked my brain and tucked my ear off, which is like literally the entire family is like going ham on generative imaging. So
That's so
these
cool.
are these are these are the days we live in, which
I'm
is pretty
telling you,
cool.
it's fun. Like it reignites this part of your brain that, unfortunately, I feel like goes dormant once you like leave school and stop coloring in books every day, and it's just really fun. So I don't blame them.
Yeah, it's like that quote where they say it's like we don't stop playing because we get old. We get old because we stop playing. It's
Yep.
like, yeah, it's maybe a good way to look at it.
Totally.
So,
Well, everyone, keep
all right,
playing.
everybody,
I know
thank
not all
you.
of you have access to the
Yeah,
beta, but hopefully we get you in there soon. And if not, I do hangouts every day, usually, where we can play around in the tool together. You can give me a prompt, and then I'll generate things. We can figure out how it'll look together. So stay tuned for that. I hope everyone has a really happy weekend. And thanks again, John, for joining us. This was really, really helpful and fun.
cool. All right, thank y'all. Have a good one.
All right, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.